Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for the Litestar October 6th Office Hours. Today we talk a lot about removing required dependencies on the Litestar base package, a lot of the plugins that Cody's been working on, and some more shenanigans. We hope you liked today's episode, and if you want to catch us live, you can join us, join the Discord, check out the events tab, and make sure you are registered to see when we go live next.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello. Great. You can talk now. I was going to say, this seems to be the talk where we all have technical difficulties. And that's also exciting to hear, probably, for someone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed, we can.
What did I have to fix? You said I had to fix something.
It fixed itself, or he fixed it himself. I don't know. But he couldn't talk for some reason. It says he didn't have permission to talk. I don't know why.
I probably blocked him for all the bad things he's done to me.
And there is the last one. Hello, Cody.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. My last meeting ran a little long. How was everybody today?
I'm good. Had a busy week. What about you guys?
Yeah.
I think we all
Same here.
have.
Yeah.
Very much so. It's been a really busy week.
Not a lot of time for Litestar, unfortunately, this week, but I've looked at stuff that has been happening at least.
Cody spit out enough plugins for all of us, so I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I might have gone a little bit overboard, but it's out of my brain now at least.
Yeah. You want to talk about that a bit? Maybe just what you've done and why you've done it and where we're going with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys have obviously seen full stack, and I've seen the complaints about it being a lot of boilerplate, and I agree, right? There's a lot of that stuff that is kind of just a boilerplate to get everything going. But what I've realized for a while is that a lot of that stuff can stand on its own and be its own kind of separate plugin. And now that we've kind of got all the pieces in place, particularly the ability for us to extend the click CLI, I started rewriting all the stuff into plugins. And so this week, I think I pushed out about 6 plugins, maybe. And well, actually 7 if you include the pedantic plugin that I just added into the main Lightstar. So I guess I'll start with that one. So the first one is a pedantic plugin that will basically be a wrapper around the OpenAPI schema pedantic plugin, as well as the just the normal init pedantic plugin. And it adds one additional attribute, and it lets you to prefer an alias. And so the idea is that you can now define all your pedantic models with an alias, and in one spot you can say prefer alias, and then your requests, response, and the open API schema are all exported using that alias. And so, for instance, I use it to camel case all of my return results because I will have all of my models in snake case, and I want the open API and request to accept a camel case version of that. And so this should fix that. You guys may have also been using a workaround where you had to add in a type encoder and override the way that base model was encoded. That automatically is handled by this plugin now, and so you don't have to do any of that stuff. So it should simplify that. The other ones are in various different states of kind of ready to go, but I'll start with the 2 ones around ASCII frameworks. And so I built a Lightstar Socketify. Man, that's a mouthful. Socketify, and that plugin will basically override the built-in Uvicorn CLI and run your Lightstar app with Socketify. The problem is that there's an issue right now with Socketify and the ASCII lifespan. So when you run it, the app won't run. Once he does fix that, though, that plugin should let your application just run fine. There's nothing that needs to be done on that side. Similarly, I did the same thing for Granian, which, if you guys aren't familiar, there is another Rust-based ASCII runtime called Granian, and it's actually comparable or faster than Uvicorn in certain cases. And so I did the exact same thing with that one. And so the plugin's called Lightstar Granian, and with that you can actually run it, and it does work. And so it will launch through Granian as opposed to Uvicorn. And it works the exact same way as the Socketify one, where it just overrides the run command. So I'll pause there. Any questions on the first three, and then I guess I'll keep on going down the list.
Well, not a question, but something I would want to mention regarding the Pydantic plugin. There's another issue that having this solves, which is that we have currently tied some top-level configuration on Litestar to Pydantic, which is something we actually wanted to get rid of because Pydantic isn't required for Litestar, and we have kind of like this parameter hanging around that is basically just something that's useful for Pydantic. So it's nice that we can finally consolidate all of this stuff into a separate Pydantic plugin, and then you don't have to deal with that or be confused by it if you're not actually using Pydantic.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I've realized over the past couple of weeks with working with plugins is that it adds us a really nice way for us to augment or modify or supplement the behavior of a Litestar application in a nice package. Like we can ship a plugin that has its own controllers and its own static files and its own basically entire application that can be configured with that one single plugin. And in fact, that kind of leads me to Litestar SAC, which is got all of these components in it. And so that one is a wrapper around the SAC background processing library. And it also adds in a CLI hook so that you can run the worker from the Litestar command. So now your one app command or Litestar command can manage the database stuff with the advanced alchemy plugin. It can manage the background workers with the SAC plugin. And when you run the SAC plugin, it also has the ability to spin up the SAC web UI within Litestar. And it re-exposes and exports all those same routes that you would see in their built-in tool through Litestar. And so you don't need the AIO HTTP dependency that they have for their web package. And so that's one plus there. Additionally, I wrote a few wrappers around the way you configure the queues. And so now you can pass in a startup and shutdown process per queue, and you can pass in the functions and cron jobs that you want the particular queue to have access to. So this lets you put certain functions in allow list for one queue, and then have a completely different list of functions that can execute in the other queue. And so the idea would be that you could have like a short running queue with system processes or something, and then you might have some other queue that's dedicated to long running blocking processes that you can just execute, and it has its own concurrency configurations attached to it. So it's all working now. You guys are feel free to pip install Litestar SAC and get it up and running. I'm sure there are quite a few enhancements that we can add to it. I think I mentioned one of them in the channel yesterday, and that would be that we might be able to wrap Litestar's channel inside of this so that we could get some kind of real-time feedback to the front end about where and what's happening to your jobs without you having to actually pull a endpoint. And so the idea would be that, like, with SAC, you can publish a status update to your job that would then get pushed to the channel, which would in turn get sent to the WebSocket back down to the front end client. So you could have like a progress bar or something on a job. Would be the idea there. And so I haven't actually put that in, but that would be one of the new things that we could add in. Also, any other kind of features that you guys can think of would be game to add in here. Yannick, one of the things that I've been thinking about here, and I haven't had a chance to really talk about it, would be as part of this integration, we could automatically spin up a background SAC process that runs with the Litestar loop, and it might be something that would be dedicated to run, internal jobs that only Litestar wants. Like if it needs its own dedicated queue to handle background jobs, it's independent from something that the user might deploy. We could kind of feed that in, and so that would be one way to kind of make that happen. But yeah, there's quite a few different things we could do with it.
That's actually a good idea because we have some things that we currently have like recipes for in the docs for how you would periodically do this. For example, for some stores that need the file store, for example, would need something like periodic cleaning of expired files or something like that. That's, yeah, I mean, if we're Yeah, that's a really, really cool idea. So if we are detecting that we have this worker available, we could just have that push a job there automatically. Yeah.
And in theory, we could make that, that abstraction be independent of what, job processing engine you're using. So this, if it detects you're using Arc, for instance, it could do the same thing with those, with that queue. But anyway, I thought that was kind of a cool thing that we might be able to add in with this kind of integration we have now.
Yeah.
One thing that I did not do with the SAC plugin, and I think this is probably the way to think about it, is if you look at it in full stack, there's a run all command. And that run all command will execute the Litestar process as well as the SAC processes in using multiprocessing. I don't know that that's the best way to do that. And probably in production, most people are going to be using two separate processes: one to run their ASCII application, and then another one to run their background processes. It's set up to do that, but if you guys are looking for the run all command, it's still in full stack, which will show you how to spin up all of them in one process. It's probably good for development, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, for production, you'd usually want to, scale those differently as well. So, but yeah, for development, it's really nice to just have a command that you can fire up and just have everything running.
Yep, and so that kind of gets me to the next one, which is Litestar Vite. And the Vite plugin is exactly what was in full stack right now, minus the run command. And so I still need to add that into the plugin. But what you get now right now with the Vite plugin is the Jinja template tags, the WebSocket piece that connects into the Vite server when it's running, and does HMR on the Lightstar side, and as well as the integration that you need when you build it into production mode for it to serve those assets. And so you can look at full stack to see how it's used. We've actually already made the conversion in that repository to use it. Some of the things I know that I need to add are, one, just exposing the Vite command as a CLI option, as well as adding in a build command so that you can build your assets. And maybe another one too, basically just run the Vite process separately. But this basically opens up the door for us to do things like adding in inertia JS support, once now that this is kind of out and in its own plugin and separated from full stack. So that one also is ready to use. If anybody has any issues, feel free to ping me on it. But go ahead and check it out. And there's several more here, I think, that I've got to cover. So Lightstar Async PG is one that is also out. And so any and all of these, by the way, can get moved to the Lightstar organization. I'm okay with it. None of them have to live in my repo, but they're there for the time being. So Lightstar Async PG is very similar in idea to the SQL Alchemy plugin, except that all it does is manage the async PG connection and gives you a raw database connection as your route handler. So if you're not actively using SQL Alchemy or don't intend to use it or want to get rid of it, then you can just use the async PG plugin and get direct database access that way. And so that one is fully working and should be ready to go. So feel free to go ahead and add that one to your project. The last one is Lightstar AIO SQL, and that one is really simple. It's just a wrapper around the AIO SQL library, and it exposed a couple of uh, uh, signature namespace items. It also adds in this manager class that lets you easily manage the SQL files and connections and executing your functions from the AIO SQL object. So there's not much to it, but that one's also ready to go, and it's used in full stack as well. And so you can reference that there. And excuse me, let me clear my. Sorry about that, guys. So let me go. I think I'm missing at least one of them. So I'm going to go to actually my GitHub and see what I'm missing. And if anybody has a question in the meantime while I'm looking, feel free to jump in. Yeah, so we've got Lightstar Async PG, Lightstar SAC, Lightstar Vite, Lightstar Socketify, Lightstar Granian, Lightstar AIO SQL. Oh, and there's one more, and I haven't finished it yet. It's mostly done, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I got to go see where it's at. But it's Lightstar HTTPX OAuth. And so if you guys are familiar, there's a pretty nice library called HTTPX OAuth that adds in simple integration for OAuth 2 providers like Google Single Sign-On or GitHub SSO. And so the idea would be that you could use this to quickly add in that type of authentication support into your application. So those are the new libraries. Now, I guess I'll go ahead and cover Advanced Alchemy because I have clearly been busy this week. So Advanced Alchemy, I added in a service layer, but I did it a little bit differently than what's in full stack. I've added in a service layer that is read-only, and then there's the second piece to it that extends it, that adds in the full write capability. So you can now get something that has just the commands you want. If you only need to do reading, then you can just get the read service and it'll only have those methods. But if you need to do all the CRUD actions, you can just grab the extended service method. I also made a synchronous version of those. So if you're using synchronous SQL Alchemy drivers, you can use that service for those. I want to be quiet for a little bit. I think there's one more, but I'm going to not talk about it yet.
That's very exciting.
So yeah, I really didn't do a whole lot this week. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, just 6 plugins and a major feature. You barely get anything done.
Well,
So something I've just today started to work on is in Advanced Alchemy, we already have support for multiple databases for the Starlet integration. And Sonic too, I think. Does that work with Sonic? I don't remember. Yeah, it does. And I've worked on that for Lightstar, which is a bit more complicated because the whole plugin thing is quite a lot more complicated because it does so many things. And once I have done that, we could actually add the support for multiple sessions on the repositories and subsequently the services, I guess, as well. So you could finally have like a read and write session in both of those.
oh, that's really cool. And that's going to be I think, we're going to start seeing this more and more, and you guys may already see that in the field, but as your Postgres database starts to grow, you sometimes have challenging ways to scale it. And so sometimes you have to create read replicas that only have access to read the data, but you can't write to those databases. Or you might have to hit a pool, like a PG bouncer pool, before you get to your database. And so there may be you have to actually adjust what connect string you connect to. And so the idea here is that you can define a session that you would use for reading, and it can be different than the session that you use for writing. And so you basically force the session to read from all your read replicas, and you can have the write only go to the one master in Postgres that accepts the writes. You could actually do this there's probably quite a few different variations you can do this, where maybe you have the databases connecting to, or sessions connecting to 2 different databases. You could do something with that, but the idea would be that you have the freedom to split up those operations between which database connection they run on. And this is a super feature, Yannick. So that's awesome that you've got it going.
Yeah, and the way that we are doing it, because you can sort of do it in SQL Alchemy, right? There is support for multiple binds, but it's not very convenient. The way we're doing it has the advantage that you are really flexible with it, right? So you could have one configuration for one service only, or since you mentioned the read-only service, right? You could just set that up to always use the one read-only session that goes to the one read-only engine, and I don't know, use something completely different for a different repository in combination with yet another service. So you're really free to mix and match between everything just as you need. We have
I just saw your question.
yeah.
Um, and the answer is it does begin the transaction implicitly at the beginning of it, and it will commit it or roll it back depending on which one or which handler you have. If you use the auto commit handler, it'll automatically commit it based on what your response message from your route is. Um, but you should be able to do an implicit sub transaction, if I remember correctly, in SQL Alchemy. So let me see if I can give you what you need there. Yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything on top of that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can. I'm looking for the thing in the docs now as well. I can't find it.
Yeah, I'd have to. I'll look it up, but there is a way I think you can do like a sub transaction, um, and it should stop complaining in that case for the error you're getting. And so on that topic, on the just to kind of close out the changes to the plugin, um, I mean, it looks like it's not extremely hard, or is it complicated? You said
Oh, you're talking to me.
correct. Yeah, I was. Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry, I should have.
Um, mm, well, it's a bit complicated because we will have to adjust how we do Alembic. Because right now, Alembic uses the
Binds.
configuration, the SQL Alchemy configuration. And if we have multiple SQL Alchemy configuration, we need to figure out a way how to address Alembic, because obviously you can only have like one Alembic command. And I'm not yet sure what the best way is. Of course, we can just pick one config, but who's to say which is the right one? So ideally, we would also support multiple configurations in Alembic, but that would then mean altering the command a bit. And I haven't looked into that yet, but it's something we will have to do if we want to support multiple configs.
Got it.
I mean, the alternative would be, and that's how I've implemented it right now, is that it's just disallowed to pass in multiple Alembic configurations. So you can pass in multiple SQL Alchemy configs, but they all have to then have the same Alembic config. That's just a workaround at the moment. But yeah, I think we'll be able to figure something out. I was thinking of maybe just making these configs available in the Alembic command, so you have to pass in a name to the configuration. So it works like an identifier, and then in the Alembic command, you could specify that identifier. So you could say, I don't know, I want to run migrations against this config, which has this bind, so that it goes to the correct database.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's probably not too. Now that you mention it like that, I think that's actually pretty doable.
Yeah, I think so. Shouldn't be too hard.
Very cool.
And should also be possible to do that in a very non-breaking way, because it's just additional. So if you pass in just one config, everything just stays the same. I don't know though how well does Alembic work if you're doing multiple databases like that?
They've got built-in support, and there's a config that you can use when you're templating it out for multi-DB configs, which you need to look at it and see if there's something we need to do to change it. But if you're passing in the dash we may not have to change anything because right
Oh,
now it automatically gets what's injected from the app. So if you're changing, like for instance, if you say load it from this config, the
mm.
Alembic commands class that gets created should potentially have that DB engine and that DB URL by the time it's executing. So it should just work.
All right. Yeah, that's good. Because I was thinking, so one difference between our multiple database support and the one that's built in SQL Alchemy is with the stuff in SQL Alchemy, you can bind specific models and tables to one database. And with the approach we're taking, you will have all the tables and models in all databases. So I think they solve different problems for in some areas, right? So you can't, what our implementation doesn't do, it doesn't solve the problem that you have like two completely different databases that have completely different schemas and everything. At least not as far as Alembic is concerned.
Got it. I mean, I'll have to think on that one. But yeah, that is something that would be a problem. I don't know how like how many of our users have that kind of setup.
Well,
Probably not many.
probably not many, yeah. Seeing how little used the SQL Alchemy stuff for multiple binds is probably a rare use case, but yeah. We could think about this. But yeah, did we actually hit 3K stars, or is it just GitHub displaying that? Because GitHub rounds up.
We're above 3K now.
Yeah, we shot up.
Nice.
And in fact, I think we're on GitHub's trending for the month for Python.
Oh,
That might be
cool.
why we got a flood of stars.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but earlier we had an issue opened from someone who was, well, I don't want to say they're complaining, but they were complaining about the search in our documentation, which I can nothing but agree. The search is not that good because the Sphinx search, it kind of sucks. If you compare to MKDocs, or especially material for MKDocs. And I've been thinking if we want to pour some more resources into that once more. I mean, there's a ton of in-browser search engines for smallish documents that are available that you can use and build your index with and do that sort of stuff. But we just have to completely write from scratch an integration for Sphinx that just completely replaces the search, because it's not very easy to just extend the search capabilities of Sphinx. But I think it might be something that's worth putting the time in. Because documentation that's searchable in a good way.
What was the complaint? I think I missed it.
Well, I think the complaint was that they were looking into Litestar, and they came from Fast API, and they said, "Oh, here is it." So this Maran organization is considering moving from Fast API to Litestar, and one of the things that stands out to us is the search feature on the docs, which seems iffy at best. And yeah, I can only agree to that. So the MKDocs material for MKDocs search is way better. Because not only does it have the live preview thing and doesn't take 5 seconds, but it's also way more accurate than the stuff that comes with Sphinx, which just it doesn't really find a lot of relevant stuff most of the time.
Interesting. I'm just now seeing this.
Yeah, I mean, I had started with a Lunar integration for Sphinx like half a year ago, and but it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. and you'd have to build like a whole UI thing for that, and I don't like doing that. So if
It's like
anyone
it's like a
wants to
whole new world.
contribute on that front,
Never even heard of Lunar.js.
I mean, that's just what MK docs use, right? And I've did some digging, and there's like tons of these libraries out there that you can use that all have the different advantages and disadvantages. So I just picked that because I could look at the implementation of how MK docs did it.
Cool,
So that was a
cool.
good starting point. But they've done so much to make this good and fast. Like they're using background workers and all that. It's not called background workers. What is it called again? Web workers. The web workers API and all that stuff. Yeah, it's a bit more complicated, but I think it's worth it. So yeah, if anyone here is, I don't know, experienced with front-end development and wants to take a look at that, please let us know. That would be a very welcome contribution.
I was tricked by all of our tasks being done for 312. I didn't realize that UV loop was behind. I'm sad by that.
Yeah, what's the status on that? Is there a fix incoming for UV loop, or is it just waiting? Or I haven't really checked that.
Well, I don't know. Their last release was in 2022. I think they have a blocker somewhere. I'm trying to find it. In the Python repository, there's a blocker. Yeah, it's not great. I don't know if there's a way we could override that, but probably not.
Yes, just seeing that now, it seems like Granian is also being hit by this. They're also not ready for 312 yet because they as well depend on UV loop. Well, let's hope they can figure this out.
DuckDB needs 312 as well, or is still not 312 compatible yet either. So there's a couple of things in my stack as well that's preventing me from going up.
Yeah, I really want to try that out though. I'd really love to give 312 a go. But well,
the sub interpreters seem interesting. I'm wondering if there's a way that we can leverage that in the future. I'm not sure if there's anything that's something we could do, but I thought that's a pretty cool addition. I don't know what for yet.
Use that for? Yeah, I was gonna say
I don't know. I don't
know. Just something.
Right, just to say we did it.
So we can say, well, it supports sub interpreters. Oh, since you're talking about DuckDB, I think someone earlier mentioned what you'd use DuckDB for, and so what really sold me, I've told you about this already, but what sold me on DuckDB was I've tried the Lance integration. Lance has like a native DuckDB integration and was really, really cool because I could just write my data into this file and load it into memory and then just use DuckDB to query it like it was in a proper database, like with all the SQL and all the features and everything I needed. And on top of that, it was really fast. And just basically a drop-in replacement for Postgres, which was unexpected. I didn't think it would just work that well, but it did. And yeah, so I really like that.
Yeah, it's surprising how well it works and how many like use cases you end up seeing. Hey, I could use that here, right? Where I don't have to load an extra table, or I can do all the ETL up front and save, this extra process, or like what you just did, where I need to do something in memory. and need to do it very quickly. And it's actually really fast at processing that kind of data.
And especially that I don't actually need a database for that. That was the key point for me, right? Because that's what I wanted to avoid, because I was just like solving a database storage problem. And these Lance file thingies that you mentioned to me sound like a very great solution, but they always don't have SQL. But I need a SQL. And so that's a very, very great hybrid solution that just works out of the box. Yeah,
Awesome.
so very impressed by that, and also by the performance.
Well, I'm glad I can make one convert over to it.
Yeah, I'll definitely use it again.
Yeah, I
So
mean, if
far,
you're using polars, if you're using pandas, then I think you would no doubt have a faster time using DuckDB. And if you're using polars, I think it's probably comparable in terms of performance.
also pandas plus polars. No, wait, pandas plus DuckDB would be similar performance as polars, is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that, well, so I'm saying that you could replace pandas and do everything in DuckDB and then use the 2DF part of DuckDB to get your data frame back out. And it would be faster than just using pandas alone.
Got it. That's interesting. Well, the issue is that if you already have like tons of Panda stuff lying around, it's not that easy to replace.
But you can do it, and this is where it's pretty slick because you can do it incrementally. DuckDB can just query a pandas data frame, so you could basically incrementally change your process where only certain pieces are running through DuckDB, and you could just change it over time, right? Where you just say, okay, I want to have this process, the data frame, be in DuckDB, and then it just exports out. That goes right back into another pandas process.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Does it integrate with polars as well?
It does, yeah, exact same way.
Huh. So
And
if I have
Arrow, which is the really cool thing, because you can basically dump to Arrow and get something that is supported in nearly every major database engine. And so the idea, at least my holy grail here, is where I could get CSVs to come in, process them, and then do Arrow out and directly into Postgres without doing. Basically, that's a zero cost conversion once it gets into Arrow.
Sounds interesting.
And we are totally
I'll
not talking
definitely
about Litestar.
Well, that's okay. Do we have
But
to
it's cool
talk about
stuff.
Litestar?
I don't think we have to talk about it. I think we can talk about what anybody wants to talk about. But yeah, it's really kind of opened my eyes to how you can integrate SQL and just a database into your workflow and then incrementally improve it without ripping out everything out.
I'll definitely think about that. It's a good idea, actually. I mean, it's a lot easier than to say we'll just replace everything with polars now, for example.
There's actually, and speaking of polars, let me see, what was the name of this? There's actually a really cool library that I saw that has polars and pedantic integration and DuckDB integration. It's called Petito. That's what it is. Here we go. This one. Oh, looks like it's moved over to a new maintainer. So you can follow the link over to it. But this library is pretty slick in that it basically does the same. You can model in pedantic what your data frame is going to look like and use that to load and interact with your DuckDB or your Polar's data frame.
Interesting.
Now we just need a message spec version of this.
Yeah, I was wondering why it needs pedantic for that.
Yeah, message spec would be awesome here.
Or just data class.
Or just data class, yeah.
I'll have a look at that.
Jake, what's going on with you, man? What's the latest in your realm of the world?
Well, work. um, the PDM swap over for the main repository should be ready. So,
Oh, that's
Awesome.
nice.
I hope to get that reviewed and pushed soon because the more
Let,
changes we add, it's
question
you know.
for you
Yeah.
on that. Are you adding in all the linting and dev things so that we can just basically do make install like what we have in all the other environments to get everything set up? Because I think right
Think so?
now, like poetry install full doesn't
Uh,
get your linters and things like that, right? Like I still have to manually install MyPy and pre-commit and a couple other things. And so I was hoping that we could just use what we have in advanced alchemy and all the other repos for setting up that the linters.
oh, I think I completely replaced the make file with what we've been using for everywhere else. Yeah,
Okay, but
like
and
the
did
new.
you add in the things into the pyproject.tom because I don't think they were there before. So like if I go and look
Um,
at
right now it does PDM install, which pulls in everything.
yeah, but in Lightstar, let me just go look at the PR real quick.
I'm looking at the PR right now. Why is it talking about a personal doomsday machine?
Oh, this is like a PDM joke. It doesn't stand for anything, and so it just generates like a random name.
Is that why it
Oh,
said
really?
something like weirdly random, like
Pizza
personal
delivery man.
data? Yeah, pizza delivery man. I was like, what the heck is that?
Yeah,
I'm changing that.
yeah.
Also, it generates that. That's very interesting. I mean, I guess that's one way to handle the acronym, right? It's just like it stands for. Well, it depends on the day, I guess.
Yeah, every time you visit the homepage and click that at the top, it cycles through.
And you fixed
Whole
the issue, by
Polar
the way. You added
Dinosaurs
it into
Museum,
linting.
right? I like this. It's not just
And
no. That would be too easy.
and by the way, you've got it fixed already. So the linting group has what I was looking for.
Uh, does anyone know how they come up with these?
Yeah, if you
They're
keep
like,
clicking, there's a repository that you can actually put PRs up to add things.
oh, oh, so it's not randomly generated.
Oh yeah, I think I misspoke.
Okay, some of these
One
are.
more question I
Oh,
had on the PDM integration. So I noticed that we moved click rich and rich click into required. I know we talked about this. I just want to make sure we're all aligned on this. There's no issue from you guys from having click and those three as required dependencies in an install going forward.
I think we did that
um,
and it already merged it. I was just
yeah, yeah.
uh
That's
Oh,
that's that's a done deal already.
yeah,
okay.
we
Well, then
kept the
I'm
CLI group because for backwards compat, but
I can't find the piano, but it was. I mean, I think we discussed it like 3 weeks
yeah.
ago, and then
I think we
someone
did
made
too,
a PR.
and I'm okay with it. I just want to. I guess I forgot
Yeah,
that we talked about it. So all good.
I
Just want
yeah.
to make
think
So
sure.
I mean, yeah, I think for now this is the right thing to do. I think we may want to change this in Lightstar 3. Because I've been working on removing all non-required dependencies. So we are basically ready to drop Polyfactory. It just would be breaking. That's why we're not removing it, but it's not required anymore except for the example generation. And it doesn't break anything if it's not installed and you're not using that. And we don't need the fast query parsers as well. So this is optional. Just comes with the standard package now. And so the idea would be that if you just do pip install Litestar, it only has like what it really needs to run, and that's just any IO and message spec really. So you could have a really stripped down version. I think that's a goal. And then everything else would be in the standard package.
Makes sense. And the only one I had a question around was JS Beautifier. That one is for just the exporting of the API schemas, right?
Yeah, I think that can. I feel like that's very unnecessary.
I agree.
But we have it now. I'm not a big fan of having that in the base package.
I'm not as well. I'm actually trying to find it on GitHub to see what the dependencies of that package are, because I feel like it's also grabbing other stuff.
So how is that in PDM at the moment?
It's in standard.
All right, yeah, that's fine then.
Yeah, it's in standard. So I think it won't go. And there's one more question I had. We actually have a dependency on HTTPX, or is that? I thought that was just for testing.
Yeah, it is for testing, but we decided like a year ago or something that we want to make it a default required dependency.
Got it.
But yeah, that should probably go as well. So yeah, as I said, I think we should, in version 3, we should only have any IO and message spec as required, and everything else in the standard package.
Makes sense.
I think I've already opened up.
That would shave off of our package size, default package size.
Quite a lot.
And speaking of package size and shave off, I think the change that you made just by lazy loading Polyfactory and in return Faker cut the startup time in half. Is that right?
Yeah, it cut it in half. Yeah, we went from like 600 milliseconds to 300.
Good.
Because it is only needed if you turn on the example generation for OpenAPI, but it will import it. Before that, it would have imported it every time you do just import Litestar. So yeah. Another thing that I think we could drop is we have PyYAML, which we use to export the OpenAPI schema to YAML. I don't know if anyone uses that.
Why aren't we using the message spec YAML exporter?
Oh, yeah. That's a very good point. Why aren't we using that? Oh, because it also requires YAML. That's why.
Oh. I thought that was just a TOML. It required something
Is it
extra.
the TOML? Is the YAML native? I don't think so, right?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
I'm quite sure it's not, but I mean, I can have a look.
I think I've always had to add PyYAML.
Yeah, it depends on PyYAML. So it doesn't help.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Well,
so I was thinking that we could make that optional as well.
that makes a lot of
So
sense. I mean, if we're making JS Beautifier optional and that's only used for schema exporting, I think we should do the same thing for the PyYAML because it's basically the same thing.
Yeah. And so you can just, I think it makes sense to have the OpenAPI.json enabled by default, and then we can have like a flag that enables openapi.yaml. And that would then import PyYAML and yeah.
Well, we've only got a few minutes. Any questions you guys have? Happy to answer anything we can. And Rith, I really enjoyed looking through your code last night. I know I've complimented you on it twice, but there was some really cool stuff that I hadn't seen there and that I may end up taking. So nice job.
It doesn't look like we have any more questions, and I think that wraps it up for this week. Unless you guys had anything else.
Not at the moment. If you guys think of something, anybody in the audience, feel free to ping us offline. We'll be happy to answer anything you got.
See you guys next week. Same time, same place.
Cool.
Yep.
Everybody
Awesome.
have a good weekend and see you guys soon.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. Another Litestar Office Hours in the books. If you want to join us next time, join the Discord, check the events tab, see when the next scheduled one is. You can join us, ask questions, chat, or just hang out and listen. Until next time, everybody have a good one.